Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, I'm going to start posting more boxing and fighting videos probably this week. So, I apologize for not doing it as much lately. But let's get into this. So, today we're going to look at a video by this one boxing channel named Akhi TV. And I've, said certain things or I've done videos where I've reviewed his content before. I'm not a very big supporter of this channel because I think Akhi TV overall is a very biased and non-objective and illogical channel. But it is what it is. Anyways, I wanted to see his perspective on this because, like Akhi TV likes to do, he most likely is going to twist and turn certain information. And let's just see overall what happens here. But for the people that don't know the situation, Deontay Wilder's ex-trainer, Mark Breland, with all the recent things that he has heard Deontay Wilder say about him, decided to actually sort of strike back. And some people overall think that maybe he should have handled this differently. Some people might say, and even I might say, that maybe overall he should have just put it in a much, pleasant way, or overall should have not resorted to pettiness. But I understand his point of view, because me personally, if I hear someone saying bad things about me, especially things that I consider not true, I can get a decent amount petty as well. This reminds me of an event that happened when Terrell Owens, for those of you that don't know who Terrell Owens is an ex-football wide receiver who played for a number of years, and he was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. He only ended up being in the Hall of Fame when Randy Moss was finally inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they said, well, basically, Randy Moss was not the greatest teammate ever either, so if we let Randy Moss in, we're going to have to let Terrell Owens in. But Terrell Owens, overall, he was a bit petty by not going to the Hall of Fame ceremony, at least wherever they mainly have it, because he felt he got cheated out of being a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I agree. But a lot of people thought Terrell Owens was being overly sensitive and being very petty. Well, when certain people feel that they got cheated out of things, let me tell you something. I actually don't, I'm not going to say I condone those actions, but I get it. So it is what it is. And Mark Breland decided to strike back with a certain amount of words to Deontay Wilder, or about Deontay Wilder. And let's see what he said.
Shocking news came out of Breland responding to Deontay Wilder yet again. Deontay Wilder, former trainer, Breland stated when he was asked about Wilder, quote, "His career is over now. I'm done and he's done. I'm done with him. Wilder only has his power, and we will see how far that takes him. That's all I'm going to say."
Well, we've already seen how far it took Deontay Wilder. He was able to beat a certain amount of, okay fighters. He was able to beat one very good fighter in Luis Ortiz. And then he lost. He pretty much got his ass whooped twice against Tyson Fury. And a lot of people overall are not going to like that. Of course, there's a certain amount of people that tell me, oh, that first fight was a draw, and the second fight, Tyson Fury cheated. I don't believe any of that. And I've done a certain amount of videos on why I don't believe any of that. I might actually do a video where I record the whole entire first fight and we go through it round by round so I can explain why I think Tyson Fury was winning that fight. Because in my opinion, he very clearly was winning that fight. I thought it was 9 rounds to 3 for Tyson Fury. That's how far apart I thought it was. So even with the 2 knockdowns, I thought Tyson Fury won that fight. Clearly. But it is what it is. But don't expect to get any logic or objectivity from these guys. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. Do I think that Mark Breland could have handled this situation a little bit better? I think maybe he could have handled it better, but let's just say I get it. And a certain amount of people are going to say, see, this is proof that Mark Breland was never serious about Deontay Wilder in the first place. Let's keep in mind that Mark Breland is not just doing this because he got fired. Mark Breland is doing this because after a certain amount of verbal assaults on his character and on his professionalism from Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder has basically been saying shit about this man for the past year. And Mark Breland finally has had enough and said, well, you know what? I'm going to talk some smack back. So I get it. When certain people overall say things, you cannot be upset when certain actions occur. It is what it is. Or when certain reactions occur. It is what it is. All right? And Mark Breland decided to say certain things. Do I think it was an emotional reaction? Yes, I do. But it is what it is.
Breland was asked about spiking Deontay Wilder water. He stated, and I quote, "A lot of people know me. If you are looking at tapes or whatever and stuff like that, you don't ever see water in my hands. And regardless of that."
And I do believe he did have the water in his hands a couple of times in the rematch. But you know who also had the water in their hands? JD's. JD's also, who I believe is Deontay Wilder's head trainer, he also was watching Tyson Fury wrap his hands. But yet the LDBC and overall the pro black boxing mafia, they're not alleging that Deontay Wilder and JD's overall, or they're not alleging that JD's was in on it. I wonder why that is. Is it because they truly believe that JD's was not in on it? Or is it because Deontay Wilder basically said that he's not in on it and they basically have to kowtow to anything that Deontay Wilder says, or they're going to look stupid themselves? Anyway.
"I'm there to help you. When you win, I win." End of the quote. One thing for sure and two things for certain, Breland was giving Deontay Wilder water in the corner. So he might want to check, because there is pictures and footages of Breland giving Deontay Wilder water. Therefore, when it comes to what Breland just stated, that's a big negative, if you ask me. He also continued by stating, and I quote, "Some people can't take a loss. If you lose..."
I agree, and Deontay Wilder has not been able to take this loss. He has been completely mentally shattered after this loss. And that's not surprising, because Deontay Wilder is a very delusional character. He had great, well, allegedly at least, great self-belief in himself. And I believe that he did have that against the Tyson Fury. Once again, do I ever believe that he was serious about taking the Anthony Joshua fight? No, personally I do not. And I've had a lot of people get on my ass about that. What are you talking about? Anthony Joshua was the one that was avoiding Deontay Wilder. Whatever. There's a reason why Deontay Wilder turned down the DAZN contract and even admitted it himself. But anyway, when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. Deontay Wilder was a very, very, very delusional fighter. And when it came down to it, when he finally got his ass whooped the way that he did against Tyson Fury in that rematch, his mental state completely came crashing down.
You lose. Don't blame everybody. Go back and think about yourself. Then when Breland was asked about the clear tampered gloves that Fury was wearing against Deontay Wilder, he stated, and I quote, "If he did, I don't know. I doubt it very much, but at the same time, he ain't going to beat Tyson Fury." Then when Breland was asked about Deontay Wilder arsenal as far as his jab and his training method, he stated, "No. He used the jab one time in that first fight with Stavern. That was it. Deontay Wilder does not jump rope, doesn't hit the speed bag, or the heavy bag." Breland also added, "If I box the guys he boxed, I will beat them. That's the bottom line. You said..."
And that's just the truth. Now, of course, obviously, Mark Breland would not beat those guys, but we all know what he's trying to say there. What he's saying about Deontay Wilder's resume is the same thing that I've been saying about Deontay Wilder's resume every single time I've been doing one of these videos. Deontay Wilder does not have a very good resume. He has one very good win against Luis Ortiz. And I have all these people trying to get on my ass. "Oh, Deontay, what are you talking about? Chris Arreola was top 10 ranked by the WBC. Eric Molina was top 10 ranked by the WBC. You're lying on Deontay Wilder." No, I'm not lying. I never once said that a certain amount of these fighters were not top 10 ranked by the WBC. Oh, I'm sure they were. But let's take a look at Gennady Golovkin's last fight, for example. I don't even remember that dude's name. And I'm sure that he was top 10 ranked by the IBF, because I believe that's the middleweight title Gennady Golovkin has right now. Does that make him a great opponent? I remember when Gennady Golovkin, I believe, fought that one dude Was his name Marcus Brown? Something like that. You know, I'm sure he was top 10 ranked by one of those belts that Gennady Golovkin held at the time. Does that make that dude a good opponent? Like, come on. let's be real. When you take a look at Deontay Wilder's resume, besides Luis Ortiz, there's not one good fighter that he beat throughout his career. Maybe Bermane Stiverne. Bermane Stiverne you can count as a good win. Luis Ortiz was a semi-great win when it comes down to it. But the rest of those fighters on his resume, Artur Szpilka, bum. All right? When you talk about Johan Duhaupas, bum. When you talk about Eric Molina, bum. Chris Arreola, bum. All those guys are bums. I don't give a shit who doesn't like it. All right? If you don't like it, you know, you can leave. It is what it is. I really don't give a shit. Deontay Wilder, for the majority of his career, fought nothing but absolute tomato cans. Besides Tyson Fury and Luis Ortiz, he really did not fight anyone that was overly great. Even Bermane Stiverne, in my opinion, was not overly great. But at least you can count that as a very good win. Luis Ortiz was a very, very good win. And Tyson Fury, he pretty much lost dominantly in both of those fights. But it is what it is.
He had some good wins. Luis Ortiz was a good win. Just that fight. That was it.
I agree. Preach, Mark. You tell him, Mark Breland. This is the same shit that I've been saying for a certain amount of time. I've been saying this shit for years. And I'm not the only one that knows this. Deontay Wilder has never had that great of a resume. It is what it is. Now, does that mean that Deontay Wilder is not a great fighter? Well, we have to consider him a great fighter. I do believe he is an A-class fighter. But does that mean that he has an A-class resume? No. There are many fighters that I believe are A-class fighters that don't have A-class resumes. May not even have B-class resumes. Deontay Wilder had like a C-class resume. You take a look at Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is an A-class fighter, but he does not have an A-class resume. When you take a look at, you know, both the Charlo brothers. Now, Jamel, he's built up his resume a little bit more as of recent, even though I won't necessarily say that the fighters at the 154-pound division are all A-class, but at least he's unified that division. Jamal, although I would not say that he has a very good resume. Demetrius Andrade is another example. A-class fighter does not have that great of a resume. Actually has a very weak resume. When you take a look at Gennady Golovkin, in my opinion, was an A-class fighter. He never had that elite of a resume. Same with Leo Santa Cruz. It is what it is. Alright? It's whatever.
End of the quote. That being stated, let's put things in perspective. You keep hearing old media tell the public that Wilder should have kept Breland. So let's play that scenario. Let's say Wilder heading to a trilogy against Tyson Fury, he kept Breland as part of his team. The whole time, Breland will have thought Wilder had no chance in the world because he implied even if Tyson Fury cheated, Wilder can't beat Tyson Fury. He also added...
Well, Akhi overall is trying to twist this. The question overall here is that is Mark Breland speaking to what he always thought, or is he speaking emotionally? And what do I believe he's doing? I believe he's speaking emotionally. But of course, Akhi TV, what he has to try to make it sound like is that Mark Breland was in on it. So what he's going to have to try to do, he's going to have to try to make it sound like Mark Breland was in on this the whole entire time. You know, and that there's a reason why Deontay Wilder fired Mark Breland. The reason why he fired Mark Breland was because Mark Breland was the one that stopped the fight. And Deontay Wilder is very salty about his loss, and it has devastated him. It has shattered him mentally. Completely shattered him as a fighter.
Wilder fought nothing but bumps. Breland revealed...
Which is the truth. Besides Luis Ortiz, it's pretty much the truth. You know, a lot of people overall ain't gonna like that, but it is what it is. And if you have no problem with me saying Gennady Golovkin fought a certain amount of bums in his career, you know, you should have no problem me saying it with Deontay Wilder. These guys have no problem calling Gennady Golovkin a hype job, even though I never believed that he was a hype job. But then they'll say Deontay Wilder is one of the best heavyweights of all time. Once again, I've already told people this, man. Because a certain amount of people try to say, well, they're not a pro-racial cult. They're pro-PBC. Oh, they are pro-PBC, don't get me wrong. But these, you know, LDBC members and these new media members, yes, they are pro-black. It is what it is. You can tell me all you want. I know how they operate. Especially Akhi TV, Dante's Box Nation, Boxing Eagle. Those guys, new media especially, yes, they are pro-black. It is what it is.
That he believes Wilder does not have the arsenal, the skill set, nor the work ethic to be a true champion. Therefore, since that's the case, the $1,000,000 question that I want all of you guys to answer is, if you are in Deontay Wilder's shoe, would you fire Breland knowing that's how he feels about you?
Okay, but Akhi, Mark Breland didn't say any of this until Deontay Wilder attacked Mark Breland's character. I mean, come on. Let's have some common sense here. Once again, I don't know if Akhi TV really is that dumb, or overall if he's a genius by making people literally watch his videos. Either way, it's very unfortunate when you see the amount of followers someone like this has, because Akhi TV unfortunately feeds a lot of idiots out there. It shows you how many people that really don't know anything about the sport overall follow this guy's channel and a certain amount of other channels like his. It's very unfortunate because people like Akhi TV, they don't help out boxing, they hurt it. But anyway.
Or would you keep him? So I'm looking forward to reading the comment section to see how many people are going to keep Breland as a trainer.
Well, of course you don't bring him back now. But when it comes down to it, the question is that, what if Mark Breland never, brought this up in the first place had Deontay Wilder never attacked his character? In my opinion, he would have never said anything like this had Deontay Wilder, never attacked his character. The only reason why he brought this up, I believe it was an emotional outburst because Deontay Wilder has been talking shit on this dude for a year. And then I believe Deontay Wilder said something like, wow, I can't believe he's saying these things overall. Well, what do you expect? When you show constant disrespect towards someone over a certain amount of time and are alleging things like this, you can't, without any evidence whatsoever, which maybe some of us are a little bit guilty of us at times, alleging certain things that we don't have evidence for. But you're accusing someone basically 100% of poisoning your water overall and basically being, a shill for Tyson Fury and his team. You need some evidence for that, man.
If they were.
I mean, Deontay Wilder's not even saying, well, maybe it was possible. What Deontay Wilder is saying is that he 100% did it. That's what he's saying. So you got to expect someone overall to have some hurt feelings about that. And you got to expect overall maybe something to come back at you. But these idiots, they're like, oh my God, can you believe what Mark Breland is saying? Yeah, I can totally believe what he's saying. For every action, there's a reaction. It is what it is.
In Deontay Wilder's shoe. However, the reality is, no one is going to keep a trainer knowing that's how he feels about you.
Okay, but when he got rid of him, Akhi, Mark Breland never came out with these statements. It's understandable that he doesn't bring him back now, but I mean, come on. What kind of idiots are actually going to feed into this shit? No shit, he's not going to bring him back now, but we're talking about at the time. Why did he fire him at the time? Did Mark Breland say these things at the time? Or did he just fire Mark Breland because he was pissed off that Mark Breland stopped the fight? It is what it is. And certain fighters overall to where their corners stopped the fight, even Miguel Cotto, after they stopped the fight against Antonio Margarito. Now, do I believe Antonio Margarito cheated personally? Yes, I do. But Miguel Cotto, I believe, who, his trainer was his uncle at the time, he fired his uncle for that. Certain fighters are embarrassed by that type of thing. They would rather die almost than have the fight stopped. And Deontay Wilder, trust me, he is one of those fighters. So it is what it is.
It's self-explanatory. What's understood don't have to be explained. But when it comes to old media and these decaps, what's understood does have to be explained, since they want to act like they don't have no brain to think with when it comes to simple logic. However, that's what tends to happen when you are blind to the truth and manipulated by lies. Therefore, if Breland truly feels that Wilder's career is over because he's so terrible and he can't.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily what well, maybe he did say that. I believe he said something like he's done. Let me tell you this. Do I believe that Deontay Wilder is done? Well, we'll see. Certain fighters don't recover from a loss like this because he didn't just get beat. He got absolutely beat down. Absolutely beat down in this fight. Completely dominated, completely beat up, and he got very badly hurt in this fight. So the way that he lost is a lot different than, say, the loss that Vasyl Lomachenko suffered from Teofimo Lopez recently last year. You know, to where Lomachenko might be mentally affected from that later on, but it's going to have nowhere near the same impact to where the way that Deontay Wilder lost. It is what it is. And the fact that he was so delusional and has really not tried to improve his skill set like an Anthony Joshua after he lost to Andrew Ruiz. Now we'll see what Deontay Wilder does recently now after he takes, this loss. But as we see, Anthony Joshua took his loss a hell of a lot differently. I heard some excuses from Anthony Joshua's corner, but I actually never heard any excuses from Anthony Joshua himself. Either way, he improved himself as a fighter. That matchup against Kubrat Pulev, even though I don't ever think of Kubrat Pulev as an A-class fighter, that was the best performance I've seen in Anthony Joshua's career. His head movement looked pretty good in that fight. He boxed pretty well in that fight. I thought he won every round in that fight, and that's against a fighter to where, once again, I don't think he's A-class. But Kubrat Pulev is decently fast. He's, decently strong. And Anthony Joshua barely got hit in that fight. You can tell that loss actually has made him a better fighter. Will this loss make Deontay Wilder a better fighter? To be honest, I doubt it. Because I don't think Deontay Wilder is worried about changing up his skill set. Deontay Wilder is very delusional, and he thought overall that he could basically be successful off of being a one-trick pony. And when you have that mindset, eventually you're going to get beat sooner or later if you have decent enough talent in your division, which he did. So it is what it is.
Beat Tyson Fury, even if he cheated. This tells us multiple things. It tells us that this is how Breland truly feels about Deontay Wilder. He never believed in Deontay Wilder because he said he could beat everybody Deontay Wilder for. They all bums. So, since that's the case, how come the fans, all of these decafs that pretend to be Tyson Fury fans, when in reality, they nothing but Deontay Wilder haters?
Well, a certain amount of people, I'm sure, do hate Deontay Wilder. I'm not going to deny that. But a certain amount of people overall that criticize Deontay Wilder, they just realize what Deontay Wilder has been this whole entire time. People like me. He's been a one-trick pony for his whole entire career, and it was going to be a certain amount of time to where he finally met someone that was going to be able to handle that right hand, or someone overall that was going to be able to avoid it. And when that day happened, Deontay Wilder, I'm not going to say was going to get exposed because I already knew the problems that he had, and a certain amount of other people knew, but overall he was going to get beat, and badly, and that's exactly what happened.
Including old media. How come they tell Deontay Wilder to keep Breland? What's the point when Breland doesn't even believe in Deontay Wilder? And we know this is how he truly feels because this is not him responding to Deontay Wilder a day after Wilder said something about Breland. This is months after.
It's months after hearing a bunch of bullshit from Deontay Wilder constantly. After hearing overall that he poisoned his water and that it's a fact that Mark Breland was a crab in a bucket overall and all this other shit. It's hearing a year after constant bullshit from Deontay Wilder. And I think Mark Breland tried to be civil about it at first. But after a while, he was like, you know what? Fuck all this. So it is what it is.
Wilder says something about Breland. So this is not Breland emotionally speaking.
You see what Akhi did there? I told you guys. He was going to have to make it seem like Mark Breland overall was not emotionally thinking here. That he was saying this overall because that's what he truly believed. Do I believe that do I believe that there's some truth into what Mark Breland's saying? Yeah, a little bit. But he's also doing this overall because, he feels hurt by what Deontay Wilder said. I do believe he is mainly emotionally speaking here. But anyway.
This is Breland coming out of the closet telling us how he truly feels about Deontay Wilder and how he truly felt about Deontay Wilder his whole career. He never believed in Deontay Wilder, which now all of the pieces are falling together like puzzle. Breland came out and said that Wilder does not have a jab. Well, as a trainer, Breland, you were supposed to perfect Wilder and teach him the first step in boxing, which is how to...
Well, maybe Deontay Wilder was not completely focused on really improving his craft, because there are a certain amount of fighters out there like that. It is what it is. Deontay Wilder, to me, does not seem like he's overly interested in improving his craft, although he is motivated for each fight and motivated to be a great fighter, it seems like, or at least, quote unquote, you know. But when it comes down to the overall, I do believe Deontay Wilder is motivated to be a great fighter, but that doesn't mean that he's motivated to improve his skill set. In other words, you know, let's say you go to college or go to high school, just because you attend the classes doesn't mean that you're listening to the lectures. It doesn't mean overall that you're taking in all the information. You know, it is what it is. And we're going to see Akhi TV bring that up, because I did see a part of this video, and you're going to see Akhi TV bring that up. Well, Deontay Wilder overall is motivated for every fight, you know, and all this other stuff. But let's see him bring it up first, and then I'll bring up my point.
Throw a jab. So Breland was with Wilder his whole career and never taught Wilder how to throw a jab? What sense does that make? That can only mean one thing. You failed your job as a trainer, Breland. Then Breland want to talk about Wilder's work ethic as far as punching the heavy bag, the speed bag, jumping ropes, so on and so forth. Well, I have seen Wilder punch the heavy bag, so I don't know how true that is. But one thing for sure...
And I'll actually say this about Deontay Wilder. I never thought that he had a bad jab. So I believe Mark Breland did the best that he could with Deontay Wilder's jab. I actually don't think that he has a bad jab. But it is what it is.
Wilder is in shape year-round. You can never question Deontay Wilder's work ethic, because I seen fight...
Well, just because you stay in shape doesn't mean that you're focused on improving your skill set. And this is what I mean. Just because you're attending, the class doesn't mean that you're necessarily listening to the lectures. You know, and it is what it is. Deontay Wilder wanted to win his way, and pride got in the way. He was never focused on improving his skill set, at least from what I've seen. So it is what it is. I mean, in the end, you get what you get. If you're in class but you're not listening to the lectures all the way and you fail the test, then that's your fault. It's the same thing with Deontay Wilder. All right, if you overall don't listen to certain advice, and it doesn't seem like Deontay Wilder was, it seems like overall the more further on in his career he got, the more one-trick pony that he ended up getting. It is what it is.
It is get out of shape. Errol Spence, Gervonta, some of my favorite fighters. However, I never seen Deontay Wilder out of shape. He's in shape year-round.
Well, of course he's in shape. The question is, was he focused on improving his craft? And from what I've seen, no, he wasn't. I think Deontay Wilder believed seriously, and the more hyped up he got, the worse it got. He truly believed that he did not need to improve whatsoever. So it is what it is. You know, there's this show that recently came out a few years ago. It's called Cobra Kai. And, you know, for those of you that know about it, it's based on the old Karate Kid movies with Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso, blah, 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 blah. You know, there's a quote, I believe, by Mr. Miyagi, and I've never seen the old Karate Kid movies, but I have seen the show Cobra Kai, where he says, there's no such thing as a bad student, only a bad teacher. I don't believe in that. I do believe that there is such a thing as a bad student, because certain students overall will be willing to listen and learn and grow from their experiences more than others. There is such a thing, as bad students. Ones that are not willing to learn, ones that are very hard-headed, ones that believe that they know everything. All right, and I believe Deontay Wilder is one of them bad students. It is what it is.
I know Deontay Wilder gives it his all every single time and never cheated the fans by losing to that man in the mirror. That's not Deontay Wilder. And when it
Well, I do believe that he lost to himself in the mirror. I do believe that he lost to himself. Now, do I believe overall, even if he had tried to improve his craft, that he would have beat Tyson Fury? Probably not. But it would have helped. It would have helped overall if he would have tried to improve his craft. And I do believe Deontay Wilder tried some adjustments in the second fight, but it just was not enough. I just never really seen Deontay Wilder improve technically as a fighter throughout really the 5 years that I've seen him fight. But it is what it is.
comes to running, I know Wilder replaced that with swimming because it's better for your joint, from what I heard. Also, when it comes to the speed bag, even Errol Spence, he stated he never learned to hit the speed bag. That's what Errol Spence tweeted. So it's different strokes for different folks, as long as you get the job done in the ring. And as far as the skill set, let old media tell it, and all of these decafs, 80% to majority of the fighters Deontay Wilder fought in the heavyweight division are more skillful than him, including Ortiz, arguably the most skillful heavyweight in the world today.
Hold on, let's rewind that.
Are more skillful than him, including Ortiz, arguably the most skillful heavyweight in the world today. And
No, Luis Ortiz is not arguably the most skilled heavyweight today. He's a very decently skilled heavyweight. Is Anthony Joshua more skilled than Luis Ortiz? Absolutely. Is Tyson Fury more skilled than Luis Ortiz? Absolutely. Now, is Luis Ortiz more skilled than Deontay Wilder? I do believe so, but he's not a more complete fighter than Deontay Wilder, and a certain amount of people are not going to know what I mean by that. That fight reminded me of the NFC Championship between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady as of recent, and I made a recent comparison of that. Deontay Wilder may not have necessarily the talent of Luis Ortiz when it comes to, say, boxing IQ and skill set, but what Deontay Wilder does do is that when he lands his offense, he makes it count. So if he lands a right hand, it's going to be a bomb. And overall, he's going to make sure that he knocks you out. That's really overall what happens. It was the same thing with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship. Many people love to allege, or many Aaron Rodgers fanboys in the media and overall in the comment sections, they love to allege that Aaron Rodgers is actually the greater quarterback than Tom Brady because he's more talented and he can make more flat, overall great throws and all sort of stuff. But you can't actually allege that Aaron Rodgers is greater than Tom Brady. And the thing is, with that NFC Championship, you do have to blame Aaron Rodgers a little bit because Aaron Rodgers did not show up when he needed to in that fourth quarter. All right? And of course, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, there's always an excuse, but not to get off track. Bottom line is this. Tom Brady might have thrown 3 interceptions in that game. He might have made more mistakes than Aaron Rodgers. But also, he made bigger blows in the game than Aaron Rodgers because when his offense was needed, he made his offense count more than what Aaron Rodgers did. He led them up the field, 3 touchdowns, and also led them, I believe, to 1 or 2 field goals. Aaron Rodgers was not able to do that as much as a Tom Brady. So even though, for example, in this Deontay Wilder Luis Ortiz analogy, Luis Ortiz might make less mistakes than, say, than a Deontay Wilder. But he does not make his offense count as much as a Deontay Wilder. So it is what it is. So we can say that Luis Ortiz is more skilled than Deontay Wilder, but we can't actually at the end of the day say that Luis Ortiz is a more complete fighter than Deontay Wilder, because at the end of the day, the more complete fighter is always usually going to win. Whether it be because they have the athleticism on their side, the power on their side, the skill set on their side, or a combination of it all. It is what it is. The more complete fighter is usually going to win at the end of the day. It is what it is.
Still, the boogeyman to this day. Deontay Wilder prevailed.
And many people love to say that Luis Ortiz is this quote-unquote boogeyman, or overall that, Deontay Wilder, the people that love to hate on Anthony Joshua love to say that Deontay Wilder has a greater resume than Anthony Joshua. They love to say, oh, well, who on Anthony Joshua's resume would beat Luis Ortiz? I'm not really even sure if Luis Ortiz would beat Alexander Povetkin or Dillian White, or Joseph Parker for that matter. He might, or Andrew Ruiz for that sake. I'm not really sure if he'd beat any of those fighters. Anyway.
Against every single one. How did he get the job done? If Wilder has zero skills, how the hell he beat everybody?
Everybody? Let's rephrase that, Akhi. Everybody? Or you mean the bottom of the barrel that was ranked by the WBC? Let's be real here. Everybody? No, a person who's beat everybody is Anthony Joshua, or at least sort of, because he hasn't faced either Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury. But let's just take a look at his resume. I mean, he has a lot of top 10 ranked fighters on there, at least at the time. And I'm talking about Ring Magazine. I'm not talking about Boxing Rec's trash-ass ratings. So it is what it is. All right. I mean, Anthony Joshua has Kubrat Pulev on there, who's top 10 ranked at the moment. He has Dillian White. He has Alexander Povetkin. He has Andrew Ruiz. He beat Vladimir Klitschko at the time when Vladimir Klitschko probably was the second best heavyweight in the world at the time. I'm trying to think overall who else. Joseph Parker. I mean, Anthony Joshua has an A-class resume. There is no doubt about that. He has an A-grade resume. So when you say Deontay Wilder beat everybody, did he really beat everybody, or did he beat the bottom of the barrel? Let's be real. It is what it is. It's not that Deontay Wilder has absolutely zero skills whatsoever, but he has a very, 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 very limited skill set. And let's be real, he has not really had that elite of a resume. The two best wins of his career are against Bermane Stiverne and Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is a very, 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 very good win. All right? And he struggled throughout both of those fights very much. All right? It is what it is. Excuse me, it is what it is. In fact, he was losing both of those fights until he knocked Luis Ortiz out. But of course, he still knocked him out at the end of the day. So that point is pretty much null and void. But when it comes down to the overall, I can't really say that Deontay Wilder beat everybody. He beat mainly everybody who he faced. But let's be real, who are those people? They're not really that great of fighters. It is what it is.
Took a fighter to cheat to get the job done in order to beat.
Yes, allegedly cheat. To where there's no actual proof of this whatsoever.
Deontay Wilder. Not on an even playing field. See, what happened is Breland got comfortable listening to old media and all of these decafs. So he came out of the closet thinking it's safe. But it's never safe because the truth will always come out.
Hold on. I want to rewind that.
Calves.
Let's take a look.
He came out of the closet.
Now let's take a look at this glove. Now, I've already debunked this when it comes down to it. When you take a look at it, just take a look at the wraps at the top part. If you were really alleging that is his knuckles right there, or overall his fingers, they don't wrap the middle part of the fingers with the way overall that they're alleging that it has to be, unless you're alleging that his hand is turned over at a 90-degree angle, which they've already said is impossible, according to them. So when it comes down to it, the wraps don't touch the middle parts of the fingers. They don't touch the middle knuckles. So it is what it is. And what I mean by that overall is that the middle joints of your fingers, they don't touch that part of your fingers. And that's where they would have to be touching if the wraps were right there, or if his hand was lower into the glove. And also, wouldn't we see the thumb, because they don't wrap the complete thumb, wouldn't we see the thumb in the lower part of the glove as if that's where his thumb is? Wouldn't that make sense? But no, we don't see anything there. Once again, it's so easy to debunk most of this shit when it comes down to it. It just shows you how idiotic these people are. Once again, I really don't know if Akhi TV really believes the shit that he says, or if he's just trying to get views. But either way, it's very unfortunate with a certain amount of the people that follow channels like this, because they make the sport of boxing worse. But it is what it is.
It's safe, but it's never safe because the truth will always come out. You hear Breland say, I never had a water bottle. That's not true, because Breland is on footage with a water bottle.
And it's very possible that Tyson Fury overall was caught on steroids. It's very, very possible. But when it comes down to the overall, Was he caught on steroids for either Deontay Wilder fight? No, he wasn't. It is what it is. And once again, I also had this one commenter one time saying that, well, basically what he was saying is that, well, because of someone's past actions doesn't mean that they should be judged in the present. Well, when you do repeatedly dirty things in the past, you are going to be judged in your present. Whatever you do in the past and whatever your resume says about you in life, that's what you're going to be judged on. And I don't completely disagree with that. Because when someone has a history, you have to somewhat judge them on their history. The problem is that the only thing dirty that I possibly see in Tyson Fury's history is this steroid allegation right here. That's the only thing I see that might have some possible dirt on Tyson Fury. But do I believe that he ever cheated with his gloves? Absolutely not. And he was not caught in either Deontay Wilder fight for steroids. So really that already is pretty much crossed off the list. So once again, all these are allegations and conspiracy theories. But it is what it is.
Breland questioned JD's, claiming, if I was in it, how come JD's, who was in Tyson Fury dressing room, is not in it if you claiming Tyson Fury tampered with his gloves? Well, the answer is very simple. When Tyson Fury cut off the camera in the dressing room, we did not see JD's. We did not see the WBC president.
The question actually that I have, Akhi, is that you have these pictures, these 100% authentic pictures, according to Akhi and all these guys alleging this. When it comes down to it, you say that it shows his knuckles. Well, according to the alleged dent in Deontay Wilder's head, you say overall that there had to be an egg weight in there, or a metal object, something of the sort. So why do we see a picture, this 100% authentic picture, obviously, to where it shows his knuckles and not a picture of an egg weight in there, or not a picture of somewhat of an imprint of a metal object? No, but apparently we see a perfect picture of his knuckles. Isn't that peculiar, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't that peculiar how we see a picture of perfect 4 knuckles? Isn't that interesting? Anyway.
That claim to be there. So, it's clear as...
And once again, like I said, there was no dent in Deontay Wilder's head. There was no dent in Deontay Wilder's head. There was a little bit of swelling after the fight on Deontay Wilder's left side of his face that made it look like there was a slight dent, but there was no actual dent. That's why there was no surgeries that happened on Deontay Wilder's skull saying, oh my God, Deontay Wilder is in emergency surgery because he's recovering from a dent in his skull. If that were to happen, that dude would have brain damage, which I'm sure he did somewhat receive from that ass kicking that he took. But it is what it is. Nothing that serious. Anyway.
There's something fishy going on. Who's that?
A free TurboTax live tax expert.
Why do you need a tax expert?
His advice is free.
People lie, women lie, old media definitely lies. However, your eyes don't lie.
I agree, Akhi. Your eyes don't lie. Or at least most of the time. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. You know, I trust my eyes as well. And what my eyes tell me is that I've never seen in the fight that I've seen about 20 times or over. And I'm not kidding about that because I have watched the fight a decent amount of times. I thought it was a great performance by Tyson Fury and I enjoyed to watch the fight. But when it comes down to the overall, I've never seen his gloves look anything like that in the fight itself. And I've not been able to see any video footage of any point in time where his gloves look anything like that in the fight. And you're not going to see any video footage because they can't find it. So it is what it is.
And we also clearly see the organic photo taken by John of the tampered gloves that Tyson Fury was wearing. There's also witnesses, Nicholas Asbury, who busted
Yes, quote-unquote witnesses. Anyway.
Tyson Fury tampering with his gloves and sparring on footage that I'm going to play at the end of this video. There's also another witness, Barry, a coach that was there witnessing Tyson Fury practice and sparring. He was practicing how to cheat and
oh, there's that alleged dent.
sparring in order to execute fight night. This is what the witnesses are saying. There's also doctors, that told the
quote-unquote doctors, but yet we've not seen one doctor actually come out and say, yes, there was a dent in Deontay Wilder's head. Once again, if there's a dent in Deontay Wilder's head, where is this surgery? You know, where is this surgery overall that must have happened because he had a dent in his skull? Once again, if he had a dent in his skull, the dude would have major brain damage. Like, oh, God. These guys are so dumb, man.
Deontay Wilder, the dent on your head is caused by an object.
So then, if it was caused by an object, Akhi, why do we see a picture, apparently that's 100% authentic, of his four knuckles and not an object of an egg weight? Or not an object of a metal object or an imprint of a metal object in his glove? You know, why do we see a perfect image of his four knuckles? When did he sneak in or sneak out that metal object during the fight? Because it had to have been during the fight if that photo is 100% authentic. Anyway.
10-ounce heavyweight gloves because it's not physically possible. However, we are supposed to ignore what our eyes are seeing. We're supposed to ignore the witnesses, the DNA evidence, so on and so forth, and believe Mr. Breland, the man that claimed he will beat all of Deontay Wilder's opponents, and even Anthony Joshua. Shockingly enough.
Oh, that's right, Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua was in on it as well, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, these British fighters, you can't trust them.
Now, don't get me wrong, Breland was a good fighter. He was a great amateur, in fact. But he was an okay professional fighter. Nothing more, nothing less. Proving that
he was decent.
Pros in the sport of boxing is almost like a completely different sport than the amateurs.
Yes, it is. I agree.
In which Wilder was able to prevail in the amateurs and in the pros.
Well, to a certain degree. You know, once again, if you're going to criticize Golovkin and say that he had an overhyped career, you also better say the same thing about Deontay Wilder, but they're not going to do that, and we already know why they're not going to do that. Once again, these people can tell me all they want to. They're not pro-racial. Yes, they are. It is what it is.
Wilder, with only 12 amateur fights, he medaled in the Olympics, which is unheard of, really. And then he turned pro to become a champion, then defend his title up to 10 times. And
against bums. Let's be real. Once again, they can tell me about these 10 title defense. Once again, but they don't claim that Gennady Golovkin is a great fighter because of his, you know, I believe Golovkin has like, what, the most amount of middleweight title defenses ever in history now? But they don't say, you know, wow, take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. You know, they don't say that. And you know what, they shouldn't, because a lot of the opponents that Golovkin faced, they were not really overly impressive. And that's understandable. But then on the same note, they'll say, well, Deontay Wilder defended his title 10 times, and we should give him a lot of praise. Well, if you're not going to give Golovkin a lot of praise, and that's a respectable opinion, you know, then you got to do the same thing with Deontay Wilder, because he was fighting bottom-of-the-barrel opponents, man. That's just the truth.
Till it took a fighter to cheat him in order to dethrone him. So if you ask the boxing world, who will be a legend that's going to be remembered out of Wilder and Breland, it's a no-brainer. Wilder all day.
No shit. Why? What the hell is even the point in that? Anyway.
Every day. In fact, Breland will...
Are you basically saying that, you know, because Deontay Wilder is going to be remembered more, that what Mark Breland is saying, it doesn't have any substance? Is that what you basically just said? Anyway.
Only be remembered from now on as Wilder, trainer that betrayed him at the end of the day, or at least the night.
That's right, with no evidence whatsoever. Anyway.
You can believe whatever you want to believe. However, the truth will always remain the same. And from that...
You know, I will believe whatever I want to believe. And I believe you're full of shit. I believe that all these pro-blacks, I believe that all the LDBC and new media members, I believe that they've been full of shit this whole entire time. But anyway, that's really about it for today. There's really no more reason for me to review this video anymore. I just thought that I would get a little opinion on that. Once again, the Deontay Wilder fan base is probably the most delusional fan base I've ever seen in boxing history. That's really about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. And we'll see how much farther this story goes, and we'll see overall how those mediations go between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. Because from what I'm hearing, it may not be going Deontay Wilder's way. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.